I'm a 25-year-old woman, and my boyfriend is 26. We started dating when I was 18, and he was 19. We were together for 3.5 years before deciding to move in together when he finished college. Since then, we've been living together, and our relationship is fantastic. We're not only a couple but also best friends, and we share a deep romantic connection. I'm crazy about him and hope to marry him one day, as well as become the mother of his children. Although I had hoped we'd be married by now, I respect his decision to establish himself before making such a significant commitment. Now here's the issue. Recently, a new colleague joined our company, and I was responsible for bringing him on board and providing basic training. His name is Jay, and he's a former professional athlete in great shape. The twist is that Jay is married, and he and his wife have an open marriage. They have a child together, conceived while she was still married to another man, and she continues to have a physical relationship with her ex and others. During one of our conversations, Jay shared all of this with me. Initially, I found it to be quite an unusual and unconventional situation, especially the dynamic his wife has with her ex-husband. When the topic came up, Jay asked me for my thoughts on open relationships. I made it clear that I was completely against the idea and that I would never want to share my husband or be with another man. Our discussion on this matter ended with Jay suggesting, "Let me know if you ever want to try it sometime. I think you would change your mind." I was surprised by his comment, but brushed it off with a laugh and changed the subject. As the weeks have gone by, Jay and I have grown closer in our work relationship. I must admit that I've developed a strong physical attraction to him. In the past week, we've started flirting with each other, and I'm becoming concerned because I can see where this is heading. I haven't discussed any of this with my boyfriend because I know he would end our relationship immediately. It's not that he's possessive, but he firmly believes in the concept of one woman and one man in a relationship. Even just flirting with Jay would be a major breach of his trust. I've decided to take a risk and talk to my boyfriend about open relationships to see if he's interested. For those who have experience with this, I have a few questions. 1. How did you initiate the conversation? 2. What did you say? 3. What happened to your relationship with your partner? Did it improve or worsen after opening it up? I talked to my boyfriend about it, but he immediately rejected the idea. I didn't directly ask for an open relationship. Instead, I mentioned Jay. I told my boyfriend that Jay was a new colleague, and my coworkers mentioned that he and his wife were in an open marriage, and she still had a physical relationship with her ex-husband. My boyfriend's immediate response was, "That's just disgusting." He went on to say that Jay must be foolish because no man would accept his partner being intimate with another man. He also had some less pleasant words for Jay's wife. In response, I just laughed, agreed with him, and changed the subject. It seems like my desire to be physically intimate with Jay won't be fulfilled, at least not in the near future. In the meantime, I plan to increase our activities at home to satisfy this burning longing within me. Update. I'm here with an update, but it's about a different yet related issue. I've made a terrible mistake, one that has cost me my relationship with my boyfriend and any hopes of marrying him and having children together. If you remember from my last update, I mentioned that my boyfriend had rejected the idea of an open relationship, and I decided not to pursue it any further. Well, a week later, my boyfriend went to Chicago for a trade show, and I was home alone from Tuesday through Thursday that week. On Tuesday morning, Jay and I were flirting heavily in the office, and during our lunch break, we went to his apartment and were intimate. I deeply regret this now, and I can't believe how foolish and selfish I was. We repeated the same on Thursday. While the physical aspect was satisfying, it didn't compare to what I have with my boyfriend. Jay has an attractive physique, but he couldn't match the emotional connection I have with my boyfriend, so our encounters felt empty. After our meeting on Thursday, I had planned to make it our last, but I didn't want to hurt Jay's feelings, so I didn't say anything that day. On a different note, I was shocked by the way Jay and his wife live. Their apartment is packed with exercise equipment, and it's in disarray with clothes scattered everywhere and things out of place. My boyfriend and I are quite tidy, so this really bothered me and somewhat detracted from the experience. Sorry for going off topic, but I needed to get that off my chest. It really bothered me. Moving on to Thursday, my relationship with my boyfriend and my hopes for a happy life took an abrupt turn. When I arrived home, my boyfriend was already there, and I could sense something was wrong. He was standing by the door wearing his coat and holding his car keys. I was excited to see him and tried to kiss and hug him, but he kept me at arm's length with his hand. Then he said something that shattered me. He told me he had been contacted on social media by Jay's wife, who asked if he would like to meet up and possibly go on a date since Jay and I were now involved physically. They had a call, and she spilled all the details about my relationship with Jay. Apparently, she and Jay enjoy being with other couples, which is their biggest turn-on. Hearing this news left me breathless, and I felt like I might faint, so I had to sit down. I immediately began explaining and apologizing, but he simply said, "Be quiet." Then he handed me a document, an eviction notice that he created himself using an online template and intended to file legally. He informed me that I had 30 days to move out before he initiated legal proceedings. In the meantime, he mentioned that he would be staying with his parents and instructed me not to contact him. I couldn't hold back the tears and made another attempt to reach out to him, but he kept his distance. After that, he rushed out the door, down the parking lot, and drove away quickly. I tried to catch up with him, but he was too fast. For the next 3 hours, I attempted to contact him, but he didn't respond. I then called his mom to inquire if he was with her. She confirmed that he was, but said he couldn't speak. When I asked if I could come over, she firmly declined, stating that I was no longer welcome there. Hearing her words tore me apart. I tried to explain that I had made a terrible mistake and would never hurt him again. But she responded with simple acknowledgments like, "Okay, and yeah," and asked if I had anything else to say. When I declined her invitation, she simply said, "Take care and have a nice life," before hanging up on me. I felt miserable throughout the night and kept sending texts to my BF, some of which now seem crazy when I look back on them. Among other things, I repeatedly apologized, professed my love for him, and emphasized that he was the only one I loved. I also sent him a text where I stated that the physical relationship with Jay meant nothing, that it was just a foolish experiment, and that he was far superior. It might not have been the best thing to say, but it was true. I thought maybe boosting his ego would make him break down and reach out to me, but it didn't. The following day, I drove to his office, although I didn't enter the building. Instead, I sent him a text, letting him know that I was waiting outside in the parking lot and intended to stay there all day because I wanted to talk to him. He didn't respond, but around 11 a.m., I spotted him walking toward my car. Seeing his handsome face approaching brought tears to my eyes, as I loved this man deeply. I had hoped he would come to my side, pull me out of the car, and start hugging and kissing me, but instead, he walked around to the passenger side and got in. We spent the next hour talking, and he allowed me to express myself without interruption. Once I had poured out all my thoughts and feelings, he calmly stated that cheating was a deal-breaker for him, and our relationship was effectively over. He expressed a desire to maintain a civil tone, but made it clear that he wanted no further involvement with me. Despite my continuous pleas for a second chance, he remained resolute. As our conversation neared its end, I inquired, "Where will I go when I move out?" I knew I couldn't afford an apartment on my own in the metropolitan area. In response, he told me that I would have to figure that out, but he assured me he would provide a check equivalent to his share of our expenses for 1 month to help me get started in a new place. Despite my attempts to beg and plead, he repeatedly responded with a firm no. When I had run out of things to say, I asked if I could kiss and hug him. He agreed to a hug but declined the kiss. We embraced for a good 10 minutes before he gently pulled away. Afterward, he returned to his office, leaving me in tears and berating myself for the next hour. I'm back with a new set of questions, this time as someone deeply remorseful for cheating. Is there hope for my relationship? Are there steps I can take to rebuild my boyfriend's trust in me? I want to emphasize that this was a one-time mistake, and I'm desperate to hear from women who have faced similar situations, especially if you manage to salvage your relationships. I'm willing to do whatever it takes to win him back because I'm struggling without him. I want to express my gratitude for the responses I've received so far, and any future responses to this post. Sharing this with someone has provided me with tremendous relief. I'm so ashamed of my actions that I can't bring myself to discuss them with anyone I know. Having this community to message with has truly been a lifeline. Thank you from the bottom of my heart once again. Update. It's been a while, and many of you have messaged me asking for an update on my relationship. I'm sad to announce that my boyfriend and I have officially broken up. Despite my weeks of pleading for another chance, I came to realize that he wasn't going to change his mind. I ended up quitting my job and relocating to my hometown. I'm temporarily staying with my parents until I can regain my footing. I couldn't afford to live in the city on my own, and I wanted to avoid working at the same company as Jay. So I decided to uproot myself and return home. I deeply regret that he found out. Now, I feel like he has ruined my life. Yes, I understand that I can start over, but it's an incredibly challenging process. Finding a man might be easy, but finding an amazing man like my ex-boyfriend is exceptionally difficult. My grandma used to tell me that discovering a great man is like finding a diamond in a coal mine. She emphasized that if you ever find one, you should hold on to it and cherish it forever. She told me numerous times that she believed my boyfriend was a diamond, and I was one of the lucky ones. It turns out she was absolutely right. Regarding my ex-boyfriend, he appears to be doing well without me. He's thriving in his job, and he has never attempted to contact me. I sent several texts during the holidays, but he never responded, so I eventually gave up. I'm currently struggling with depression, but I recently started individual counseling, and it's proving to be quite helpful. I want to address something here in response to some of the negativity within this community. The notion that once a cheater, always a cheater, doesn't hold true for everyone, and it certainly doesn't apply to me. I can assure you that I will never cheat on a partner again. You can take my word for it. Additionally, my counselor mentioned that many individuals who cheat typically don't repeat their actions, so there you have a professional perspective on it. To those who've been supportive, thank you very much, except for the haters.
All right, that was a fun story. Now let's move on to another exciting one. Stay tuned and let's dive in.
I'm a 22-year-old female, and I want to get my 25-year-old boyfriend back. To summarize, I accidentally cheated on him, and I'm feeling really guilty and upset that my friends told him about it. I need help figuring out what to say to him. A few days ago, I made a mistake in my relationship with my boyfriend of 2 years. I can't handle the guilt anymore. I used to believe he was the love of my life, and part of me still does. Our relationship had started to feel a bit stagnant. We went on dates, he bought me things, but I started to feel less important. There was a lack of spontaneity, if you know what I mean. I talked to him about it, hoping we could resolve things. Then one night, my friends and I went out, and I was having a great time. We were dancing, and a group of guys started dancing with us. I felt a bit overwhelmed because I wasn't used to being so close to other guys. However, I made sure none of them got too close from behind, so I thought it was fine. After dancing, a few of us sat down and started talking. There was one guy I was chatting with who was cute and friendly. He asked for my number, and I gave him a fake one. Some guys can be persistent, so I left it at that and moved away from him. Then another guy from the group approached me and noticed I wasn't mingling as freely as my friends. We started talking, and he mentioned that he had recently ended a long-term relationship. I should have stopped there, but I couldn't resist asking him what had happened with his ex. He explained that their relationship had become dull and routine, lacking excitement. Curiously, I shared that I felt the same way, and asked why he didn't stay with her. He revealed that he enjoyed the freedom of meeting other women, without any attachments or commitments. We continued talking for the rest of the night, until my friends and I decided to leave. Before parting ways, he gave me his phone number. On the ride to my friend's house, I texted him and said I'd get an Uber and go home. However, instead I went to his house. It was a nice place, with his own home and a fancy car in the driveway. When I entered, we continued our conversation, and eventually we started kissing and ended up having sex. Afterward, I cuddled with him and was about to leave, but we began kissing again, leading to another round of intimacy. I fell asleep in his bed. The next morning, panic set in because I hadn't intended to spend the night. My boyfriend tried calling and texting me, but I didn't respond. Some of my friends texted and even called my dad to check if I was okay. Eventually, I left his place and called my dad to reassure him that I was fine, claiming that my phone had run out of battery. When I arrived at our place, my boyfriend inquired about my well-being. Confused about what to say, I simply mentioned that I had gone to a friend's house after our outing and dozed off there. After taking a shower, my emotions overwhelmed me, and I began to cry. I never intended for things to unfold the way they did the previous night. As I finished showering, he was waiting for me. He informed me that a friend had messaged him, claiming I had taken an Uber home. Holding my phone, he explained that he checked the location and read my text messages. He confronted me, asking if I had cheated on him the previous night, and once again, tears welled up in my eyes. I reassured him that I hadn't and would never do such a thing. However, he remained silent, just standing there. I longed for his embrace, but when I tried to reach out to him, he retreated. Finally, he told me to leave before he called the authorities, so I reluctantly departed. It's been a few days since then, and I'm desperate to have him back. He meant everything to me. I've been struggling to eat, sleep, and I've even skipped my classes. I've also distanced myself from my friends, feeling that they played a role in ruining my relationship. It's disheartening that one mistake has led to this outcome. Has anyone gone through a similar situation? Is there anything I can say or do to win him back or make amends? A few days ago, I summoned the courage to return to our apartment, hoping there might be a chance to salvage what remained of our relationship. To my dismay, the apartment was completely empty, except for my clothes and some miscellaneous items I had purchased myself. It felt like walking into a scene from a horror movie. The place was devoid of warmth, filled with emptiness and dampness. Everything that held our shared memories, from carefully chosen furniture to cherished moments, had vanished. It was as if he had wiped away all traces of himself from our home. Literally, every possession of his had disappeared. The furniture, appliances, even my laptop, a gift from him, and the food he had stocked in the fridge, all gone. The apartment had been stripped down to its bare essentials. The only thing left in the fridge was a bag of pretzels that I had bought for myself. He had taken everything he had brought when we first moved in together. I was overcome with panic and tried calling him, but he didn't answer. I felt shocked and abandoned. Who could do such a thing? Did he really care so little about me that he left me in an empty house? It was as if he had vanished from the face of the earth. No response, no sign of him. I'm utterly lost and don't know what to do next. How can I even begin to make things right? Is this situation even legal? We both signed the lease, so shouldn't I have been informed if he was breaking the lease? And what about my laptop? I was the primary user, and all my files were on it. I need to recover them as well. Does anyone have any advice to offer? Update. I reached out to my ex using a different phone number. He informed me that he's finished with our relationship and has already relocated. He advised me not to search for him. While he hasn't officially terminated the lease, he has no intention of renewing it in May. He remained adamant about keeping the laptop, claiming it was legally his since he had the receipt. When I explained that I only required it to copy my files, he mentioned that he had formatted it and wiped all data, just as he had erased me from his life. So what steps should I take next?
You might not like me after hearing my story, but remember, you're here for a tale of revenge. I'm currently a 36-year-old guy. Let's change the names a bit. My ex-wife, Rebecca, is now 34 years old. Rebecca and I were what you'd call college sweethearts. We navigated college and faced the usual challenges of young college life. We tied the knot in our early 20s. I was 25, and she was 23. Our marriage had a rocky start, not immediately, but situation-wise. I was studying medicine while she pursued accounting. Some things were fine with me but bothered her. Despite being married, she acted as if she were footloose and fancy-free. I have to admit, back then, I didn't see it as a problem. Now, let's jump to 2016 when she landed a job as an accountant. I was pleased because it paid well, and the company owner, James, happened to be a college buddy of mine. As time passed, instead of growing closer, tensions mounted between us. She began complaining about various things. She disliked our living situation, had issues with my actions, and lost her taste for the food she once adored. I'm a fantastic cook, and she used to love my meals. Our arguments escalated to the point where she'd hurl insults at me, calling me worthless and claiming she earned more than I did. This, on its own, might seem like a typical part of many relationships, as most couples have their ups and downs. But if it had stopped here, I wouldn't be sharing my story. The turning point occurred when I heard from our mutual friends that Rebecca and James were spending time together with some of them. I found this odd. Why would she hang out with him? Why were they socializing with our mutual friends without me knowing? I confronted both of them, and they explained it was a last-minute plan that didn't include me because I was working and out of town that day. Maybe they'd planned it in advance. I'm not sure, so I let it go. Then came 2017, the year my marriage fell apart. I became increasingly suspicious. For those of you in relationships, you know it's a warning sign when your intimate life suddenly vanishes. I grew more paranoid, and whenever I tried to discuss things, I was met with resistance. I'm not perfect. I started yelling at her constantly, demanding answers because something felt amiss. Your closest person in life seldom talks or spends time with you, and they insist there's nothing wrong. Does that seem normal? It can't be. This should have been a fantastic year for us since we both paid off our student loans and were reaching our financial peak. It should have been a great time. My friends and I had the idea to open a small medical shop as a side business. One of those friends was Saladin. He suggested we celebrate at a pub. While we were there, I noticed a woman who looked exactly like Rebecca. It wasn't too alarming, but it caught my attention. She was dancing with another man, and the lighting was dim. As I got a closer look, lo and behold, it was Rebecca and James, dancing hand in hand. I could say it didn't bother me much because they are friends and colleagues, right? I was there with my colleagues, and she was with hers. But, of course, it was bothering me. So I decided to send her a text asking where she was. She usually heads home at this time. She replied that she was already at home. Now, that was a major red flag. A huge red flag, almost like a communist parade. I told her to stop lying because it was clear she wasn't being truthful. She seemed to get paranoid and texted that she was on her way home. After that, she left the pub, and I followed shortly. On my way back home, I knew I needed to have a direct conversation with her about James. So when I got home, I did just that. I asked her face-to-face about James, and her reaction was as if she had seen a ghost because she clearly wasn't expecting that question. The way she reacted was far from what I would consider normal when asking about a friend. She mumbled and tried to play it off, but as I listened to her speak, I already had a strong suspicion that something was seriously wrong. That night, my curiosity got the best of me, and I decided to snoop through her phone. Please don't judge me, but I felt compelled to find out the truth. We had known each other's passwords, but she had changed hers, so I couldn't access it. However, the following day, while I was snooping, I managed to get it. I know it's not the best course of action, but I was desperate to uncover the truth. And there it was. A multitude of texts, countless questionable pictures, degrading comments, and even her referring to him as daddy. My wife and I had made a promise to each other that we would always be transparent and open if there was anything we needed to explore. Unfortunately, she broke that vow too. She shared with him how thrilling she felt that night at the pub. I went through everything. What hurt the most was that she had told me herself that if either of us ever got bored in the relationship or needed to spice things up, we would let each other know. She shattered everything. I couldn't look at her the same way anymore. I went to bed and cried deeply into the night. I want you to know that I had thought about coming up with a plan to get back at her secretly, but I didn't. I was overwhelmed with anger and emotion. The next morning, I made the mistake of confronting her without any evidence in hand. She yelled at me and stormed out, accusing me of being abusive and insane. That afternoon, her friends created a messenger group where they all teamed up to criticize me. She had apparently told all our friends that I was abusive. When she returned home that night, she informed me that she was in love with James and wanted a divorce. I asked her to talk it over first, but it turned into her berating me. I yelled back, and she didn't hesitate to call the cops. When they arrived, I was told to spend the night elsewhere. I went to my sister's, and when I returned the next morning, James's car was parked there. Are you kidding me? It was clear no further explanation was needed. He was intentionally doing it. Actually, she was intentionally doing it as well. I consulted with a lawyer. Since we didn't have a prenuptial agreement, she had already filed a complaint against me for being abusive, which didn't bode well for me. She never attempted to apologize or make amends, not once. Unfortunately, our country's laws don't consider infidelity as a fault, so even with that, she's entitled to half of everything I have. But her complaint could lead to a lawsuit against me. A few days later, I was fortunate to stay at my sister's house for the time being. I tried reaching out to Rebecca, but she wouldn't respond to me. Then she contacted me and suggested we get a divorce. That's it. After 12 years of being in a relationship and 4 years of marriage, she ended it with a text. To make matters worse, I was convinced that James was taking my place. The first time I saw her after that, she handed me the divorce papers. Everyone in our friend circle believed that I was an offender, and James was seen as her savior. They thought she did the right thing by cheating on me. We were officially divorced at the beginning of 2018. She was openly dating James during our divorce, as he had become her life, and she was doing much better without me. I lost my job, my house, my reputation, and some of our mutual friends, all because of her affair and lies. I had to relocate to a different city to start fresh. Saladin played a significant role in helping me with this fresh start. He secured me a job that paid decently, although it was nothing like my previous one. But it was better than other alternatives. As I worked hard to rebuild my life, Saladin and I became even closer friends. My dating life was essentially over because I found it difficult to trust anyone. There was no communication between Rebecca and me, and the last I heard was that she had moved in with James, and they were doing well. Fast forward to the end of 2020, my life was actually improving. Despite the global pandemic forcing us to work tirelessly and with sore backs, it filled our pockets. Our pharmacy business venture became successful, allowing me to earn good money. A friend of mine tipped me off that James and Rebecca had split up. It was completely unexpected to learn that her hero, James, had cheated on her and left her in a tough spot. He abandoned her with a child that was undoubtedly his. To make matters worse, he had been absent since the baby was born and hadn't even acknowledged the child by signing the birth certificate. So now, Rebecca is raising that child as a single parent. I heard she tried dating after James left, but she claims she's still not over James or me. The audacity of this woman. A part of me felt a sense of satisfaction with the aftermath. However, I have to admit, I really missed having her around, so the next part might make you cringe. But I sent her an email to inquire about how she was doing. She didn't anticipate hearing from me. We exchanged emails and reconnected. Our first meeting took place in 2021 after several years. When I saw her, it was a shock. She looked significantly worse. She had gained weight, lost the charm she once had, and appeared constantly exhausted. She opened up about James and revisited the old wounds of her infidelity and lies. I got some closure, which provided a bit of relief, I suppose. She sincerely apologized, admitting that she wasn't thinking clearly about what she was doing to me. She claimed that James poisoned her mind against me. Honestly, just her appearance alone infuriated me and fueled a desire for vengeance. It was evident that karma had already caught up with her, and the hardships of life had brought her to her current state. It should have been enough. But remember the warning at the beginning? Yes. Even after all she had done, I'm not blameless either. You can judge me, but that's not why I'm here. I felt the urge to exact revenge, and so I did. I wasn't finished with her. I told her I would forgive her if she came clean to everyone and cleared my name. She did that, even if it meant losing many friends. My name was cleared, but she had to face the consequences because it was the truth. She wanted us to rekindle our relationship, essentially forcing me to raise James's child. I told her I was interested in starting over, but only if we took it seriously. That meant we needed to start dating again and seriously consider marriage first. Only then would I consider legally adopting her child. I have to admit, the little guy was adorable, and I had grown fond of him. Here's the ugly truth. I was already seeing someone else. It's safe to say I was cheating on that woman with Rebecca. She was a client of mine from another country. We were in a long-distance relationship, so we were dating, but it wasn't entirely exclusive, if that makes sense. Her name is Lisa. Lisa was Saladin's cousin. I had already informed her about what had happened beforehand. She was initially against my revenge plan and uncomfortable with assisting me in my intense request. But I managed to persuade her to help me. She understood that I needed to go through with it. Rebecca and I were residing in different cities, so I never moved in with her. However, I played it cool by claiming I needed to travel extensively for business, so I was unintentionally raising Rebecca's hopes, only to later disappoint her, much like she had done to me. The unfortunate part is that we were physically intimate, but we used protection. Rebecca genuinely believed she had found love again. I encouraged her to seek therapy to address her issues. Everyone noticed how much better and happier she seemed now that she was with me. She would frequently express gratitude for her good fortune, always followed by apologies directed at me. She started doing things for me that she used to do when we were married and deeply in love. Trust me when I say, I had a lot of emotions tied to this woman. I reconsidered my revenge plan and started having doubts about breaking her heart the way I had fantasized. It would be terrible, the kind of trauma that sticks with someone for life. But then I remembered what she had done to me when we were married, when we had made vows that she broke. James may be an awful person, but she willingly chose to betray me. She never thought twice about breaking my heart, so why should I hesitate to think about hers? So I decided to proceed with my plan. Her birthday was approaching last October, and lockdown restrictions had eased up. Someone important to me, Lisa, was in my city. As a birthday gift, I invited Rebecca to go ring shopping. She chose her favorite ring and I had it wrapped. She was overjoyed. That night she came to me in tears, repeatedly apologizing for hurting me the way she had. She seemed genuinely remorseful, but I had no feelings left for her except indifference. On Rebecca's birthday, I drove her to our favorite spot, the same place where we got married for the first time. It's a beautiful location surrounded by nature. Lisa was already waiting there, so when we arrived at the spot, I introduced Lisa to Rebecca as my girlfriend. Rebecca turned pale and asked me what I meant by that. She questioned what she was to me, so I introduced her to Lisa as Rebecca, my ex-wife and friend with benefits. At that moment, I proposed to Lisa using that same ring. Rebecca lost her composure and began yelling. I responded by questioning how she could possibly expect us to reconcile when she had destroyed everything. I made it clear that I could never date someone like her again. She kept asking if everything we had meant nothing, and my response was a resounding no. Our last moments together were merely a form of closure. I helped her confront the pain she had caused me. Lisa was holding me back, concerned about Rebecca's suffering. I firmly insisted that Rebecca needed to leave, and eventually, she did. Afterwards, she repeated her previous actions. She told everyone that I had cheated and portrayed me as the villain. This time, I took it in stride, and everyone saw her for the deceitful person she was. She had cheated on me and made me pay a steep price through false abuse allegations. And now, she expected me to raise her child from her affair partner as my own and date her. The last time we communicated was in December of last year. She wrote me a letter expressing her apologies and regret for the pain she had caused me. She wished me a better life and, from what I heard, had no interest in dating. Her appearance hadn't improved either. In my case, you can probably figure it out. Lisa and I ended our relationship. There were other issues between us, not just what happened. Some people claim that I'm worse than my ex. Could you please specify how I'm worse than her? I loved her, and she cheated on me, resulting in me losing my home, my job, my reputation, and my friends. I behaved poorly towards everyone. I gave her a taste of her own medicine, yes, by hurting someone else. But am I now worse than her? I might have emotionally hurt her, but that's what she did to me. I'm not seeking judgment. I'm sharing my revenge story, and this is what you call nuclear revenge.